So you've got a really interesting life trajectory, because I seem to remember you were in the military, you were in
Yep.
a band, here we are talking about fascia and psychedelics. You're a filmmaker. Pretty okay. Let me see if I can weave this all into a coherent question. Um, Pretty weaving and turning to some degree. And the last thing you said about your intuition can tell if you're listening to it. So maybe could you tell me a time when you listened to your intuition and it sort of changed your trajectory just to some degree?
Hmm. Yeah. I'm almost at a phase, or I feel like I'm at that crossroads again too. Because usually it's when I'm listening to my intuition and it takes a while, it's because it's telling me to either abandon something that I've found is part of my identity. And I don't know how to set it down, not even abandon it, I guess, just set it down for a while, or pick up another journey. Um, or it's telling me to take up another journey that I've always found like, oh, that's not me. It just can't be me. Um, I would say when I was in a band, so I was in a band called Hyrosonic. I was touring nationally with this band, and I was pretty outspoken. So I was in the military when we started the band. I was in the military for a good 4 or 5 years while I was in the band, and we had already done Lollapalooza. We were constantly touring, and I was in the Guard, so I wasn't working full time. And they were super supportive. Interestingly enough, the military loved it. They were
Hmm.
super supportive of it. Um, and then I got out of the military, and I was allowed to then have an opinion. I was allowed to speak out about things going on in the world. So I just started becoming very vocal, but I hated the overly intellectual speaking out about the world. I like doing it more poetic, like musically. And so people were like, I had a lot of fans saying like, could you explain some of the lyrics, some of the message of your band? And so I felt I've always been like, everything everything's too passe for me. Like I'm not just going to explain it. I got to do a piece of art. I got to make a documentary to tell you what it is, about the world that I'm speaking about. So I had this intuition that I should start making film, not films, not become a filmmaker, but start making film, and to answer this question. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make a film about the band. I already commoditized it in my head. Like, how's it going to serve? What role is it going to serve? What function is it going to play in the band? How's it going to get us to the next step? I was already commodifying it. I wasn't doing it for the love of.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
my intuition was telling me, like, let go of what you think this film is. And it turned from what I thought was going to be a 15-minute short film about the band, about the message of the band. And then it turned into a 2 hour, 6 minute documentary that had nothing to do with the band. And it, like, the first hour and a half of it was conspiracy. And I always found conspiracy to be highly annoying, to be perfectly honest. And I was just railing on all these things. And like I was doing all this research, but it's not like I researched for 10 years prior. I just started researching, and everything I felt the intuition to click on. And this was like back, it was Yahoo more than Google at the time. And YouTube wasn't even a thing, but everything I clicked on. So I was like, at first I was talking about the Mayan calendar and the distortion of, the lunar calendar and how we look at time today. And then it started getting into the founding fathers and their connections with secret societies. And then it started getting into the date of 9/11, the date that we invaded Afghanistan, the date of the Iraq war, and all these things lining up with Mayan calendar dates. And so I was just going ham on it. And then I started clicking on like law, like, okay, what do I want to learn about law? What's this admiralty law thing? And I started realizing, really breaking apart what law is and what the legal language is. So long story short, it was this hodgepodge of research, but somehow it was stream of consciousness enough to where people understood where I was going with it. And so I was following my intuition. And then eventually I was just putting 15-minute clips of it up on Google videos. And as I was doing that, Google videos predated YouTube, and you could only upload 15 minutes until, until or unless some status of yours got to a certain level, then you could upload 2-hour things. So I was just uploading 15-minute pieces of it. And without my understanding, these were getting like 15, 20, 50,000 views. And I was like, I only sent this to like 15 people. So I had no concept of what viral was. I don't even think I knew the term viral. And people started hitting me up saying, when are you going to finish this film and upload it in its entirety? And that's when I realized, like, ooh, I don't want to make a conspiracy film or just a conspiracy film. I need to have a twist ending at the end. So that at the very end, I put in this very inspirational, hopeful, like, if you're scared of what's happening in the outside world and what I'm telling you, then you're forgetting that we are the most badass, technology in the universe. The human being is so much. So I turned it into this inspirational, like, look at your own human potential ending. And I put it up online. Halfway through the year, 6 months later, there was, well over 1 million. I think there was 2 million views on that video, but it had been shared and uploaded to, I think, 15, 20 other sites. And there was a grand total of like 20 million views on
Whoa.
Esoteric Agenda alone. And so that in and of itself, people were asking me to come do speaking gigs, one of which was in Amsterdam, where I met my now wife. These films led to my working at Gaia. These films led to all the speaking gigs, a lot of friends that I have now, me living in Nashville right now, having lived in Boulder, Colorado, having gone to Northern California and started trimming pot, in Northern California after Burning Man. But then these people recognized my voices and they were like, wait a minute, you made Kymatica. You made Esoteric Agenda in Kymatica. And I was like, yeah. And so they brought me into their inner circle. They brought me directly into like the tippity top of the weed growing community there, met some of the most amazing people in my life because I followed my intuition to not make that film about my band, to just stream of consciousness.
Wow.
And that is my career now. That's what Psychedelica is. That's, part and parcel to why I did the interview that triggered the guy to, bring me down to Nashville. The guy who brought me down to Nashville, put us up in this house. It just incredible things started to kind of spiral out of that. So that was me following my intuition. And from there, I've always been a guy who, like, if there's a cool opportunity to do something, I'm going to say yes to it. But now I'm selective. I don't just say yes to everything. If my intuition is like, ooh, you'll learn something, then it's a yes. If my intuition is like, Ben, you've done this before. Like, why would you say yes to this? You've done this before. You know what's behind that curtain. Then I'm like, yeah, sorry, no. And then when I say no to things, usually something else comes up in its place from the same person or somebody else out of the blue. And all of a sudden it'll lead to a new project and a new contract and a new direction in my life. So honestly, like, I've surrendered to the flow, and I'm not limp on this wave. I'm surfing it. Like, a surfer is not completely limp, but they're not trying to control the wave. They're letting the wave do what the wave does. And they're just using just enough rigidity to not be limp and fall over. So that's kind of how I've looked at my life. Like, I'm surfing my intuition by only having the right amount of controlling, right? I surrender the rest, and it just seems to take me in the right direction. Now it's also led to rock bottom. It has led to rock bottom, but that rock bottom was also necessary. And that was 2019, right after I had my twins. I never wanted to make films again. I thought I was just going to go back to landscaping, to be perfectly honest. And then my wife was like, all right, Ben, I know you. You go back to landscaping, you're going to be happy for 2 weeks. You're going to come home every day saying, yay, I'm getting sun and I'm doing exercise and blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to be miserable, and you're going to realize that you let your soul down. And then that's going to make me miserable. And then the kids are going to be miserable. And she was like, it's not worth it. Just keep doing what we set out to do. You got to follow your passion. And so my films led me to my wife, who then led me back into my path of filmmaking. It's strange how that happens.